Hi folks, this is Azure Stained Glass Studio here, and we are putting this little video together to show you some of the restoration process. We've got your windows here in our studio, and we thought you might like to see what's happening to them. So hold tight, I'm going to spin you around to our first example. Okay, here we are. When we first bring windows into the shop, we put them down on our table and take a close look at them and make notes and remove tie wires, which these have already been taken off, but they're little wires that are soldered onto the panels and they hold the bars. And you can see dirt across here. This is where a bar was. And this is where another bar was. And so we make notations of all sorts on something that's called a rubbing. And so before we take any windows apart, we make a complete rubbing of the window to show where all the glass goes and what different size leads are used on that window. Okay, so this window has a rubbing. This has another part to it that's in a different process, and you'll see it in just a moment. But a few notes about this window. First off, there's a lot of surface dirt. You can see, you can't see so much on the opalescent glass, but it's there. And these windows, these figure windows, have a lot of glass that's plated, and what that means is it's layered. There's multiple layers of glass, one on top of another, to create a certain color and a certain effect. And I'm going to take you down sideways to show you how that is dimensionally. I don't know if you can see that, but here's the flat plane of glass, and then here's a big fat lead, and then here's another plane of glass. So these are all, it's different pieces of glass stacked on one another. And you'll get a better example of that in a minute. These windows, because they have so much plating on them, they have a lot of dirt on them in between the plating. And so here's an example of, this piece has been cleaned a little bit. This piece has not yet been cleaned. This is all dirt between this and then another piece on top of it. And so it's made these windows look really dark over time. I'm going to turn on this light table and show you for some reason I cannot. Okay. Phew, I'm back. That was a little awkward. Okay, here's on the light table. You will be able to see better some of the examples of close-up of the glass and some of the dirt that's in here. Let's see if I can find a real juicy, dirty piece for you. In between here, there's some dirt. And it's hard to see, might be hard to see. All of that is dirt sandwiched in between the glass. So when these have been cleaned and re-leaded, they are going to be a lot brighter than they are now. This is all dirt in between here. I'm casting quite a shadow. That's not very helpful. So I'm going to turn this light off now. It's a little juggling game of light switches here. So okay, so that's what this looks like on the light table up close. One other thing that I'd point out while we're right here is the faces and hands and feet on these windows are all painted. And when we look closely, here's one face, and then here's a hand. And these feet I have taken out. Now here's an example of what the plating looks with the top glass out. See, here's a big fat lead. There's a clear piece of glass underneath here. It's not actually clear, it's really dirty. But the painted pieces were on top of this in this layer, in this thick lead layer that you can see here. These pieces, when they came out, this is what they look like. Ooh, that's too close, sorry. They're fairly dirty, and there's some paint that's been, that's a little bit damaged, and it's possible that somewhere along the way someone tried to clean this and they rubbed it with something. It's a very common mistake, and in its fragile state, it can just pull the paint right off the glass. So what we are going to do is remedy that a little bit. This face has a little bit of damage as well. Gosh, my light table is suddenly making some funny stripes in here. You can see what we're doing is we're taking a clear piece of glass and putting some paint touch-up and firing it, and we will plate it on top of the painted glass. We're not going to touch this at all. We've cleaned it a little bit, but we cannot clean it any more than what we have already done, because we don't want to, in trying to remove dirt, remove any more painting. This has already been, this and like the feet I was showing you a minute ago have already had some paint loss. So what we're using to clean the glass is a deionized water that's just carefully dabbed on a soft cotton and rolled. We're not scrubbing or wiping. There are some spots where we use something called a glass fiber brush, but only in places where the paint seems like it's pretty secure. In most cases on these pieces, the paint is not secure enough for the glass fiber brush. So another thing that I'd like to point out while we're right here looking at all these up close is there's a difference in painting style. These pieces are from another window, which I'll show you in a minute. These would be from the, if you're facing the south set of windows, this is on the left side, the eastmost window that's currently boarded up. This face and hand and 2 feet. This window is from the westmost side on that south wall, and if you look at this face, you can see how this painting, all these crisp black lines, they're dark. It's all a little bit of a single tone of paint. It's in good shape. It doesn't look like it's been damaged at all. It reads very clearly, highlights and lowlights. This is a different painting style, and we believe that those are replacement pieces because the original style, see how soft this is? There's a little bit of a blush skin tone. It's a very gentle shading with enamels. There aren't really any harsh black lines. From a distance, you would be hard-pressed to have noticed the difference in these different painting styles, and with all the sunlight that comes directly through these windows, these replacement pieces read really well. They work very well. So that's the scoop here. There's a lot of glass called drapery glass in here, and it's a little bit hard to see right now, but there's a lot of folds and ridges and really beautiful things. So I'm going to step over to the next phase, and I'll give you the next little example of the second step here. Here we are now. This is the rubbing. This is the other part of that window, and this is the rubbing, and these are the pieces that have been taken apart, and they're all laid out on the rubbing, which is our pattern. And this glass is heavily textured. I mean, you can just see it's just so, it's beautiful glass. And there are all kinds of little bits and pieces. Here's some little teeny tiny pieces. About the size of my little itty bitty fingernail. And here's the water bath. And the leads get cut away from the window, and it's all laying flat, so nothing gets broken. So the glass is being cleaned, the lead's being removed, all the dirt and dust is contained in the water, and the pieces get wiped off, washed off, and then put on the rubbing. We do not put any of the painted pieces in the water bath. It would just take the paint right away, so right off. And so we're taking the plated pieces that are painted off the window first before we put any glass into the water bath, which we call the soup. Okay, now we're going to, here's Cookie. She's the master at this. She's excellent at taking things apart and keeping everything intact. So, okay, now we're moving on. Here's an example of our lead, some of our leads. We have all kinds of different sizes and shapes, and these windows take several different sizes, and so we have lead to match, and so I'll show you that. And okay, we're going to move on to the next table. All right, here we are. This is a window that's been taken apart, and you can see how shiny this glass is compared to what the window was in the other room. There's also a lot of glare and sunshine coming right in here, but it's really bright, vivid, beautiful color glass. It really is just gorgeous, and you can get a better sense here of the ridges and what I meant by the drapery glass. It's just a small little wrinkle. But let's go over here and take a look at this. This glass has all big folds. Really nice. They just use that glass to create all the folds in this robe, you can see. And here's the sleeve. That's just gorgeous. This is, whoa, sorry, too close again. It's just beautiful stuff. And this piece is plated. Here's an example of the plating. This piece was on top of this purple piece. So this is what this glass looks like in the light. It's got a lot of transparency, or very light translucency. And if that was in your window all by itself, it would be super duper 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 bright. And this is the piece that's plated behind it. And that is a transparent purple piece. It's got a hammered texture. And so here's what these two pieces look like when they're put together. Isn't that nice? It just makes it richer, and it cuts down the glare. Plating was a technique that was used for adding color and texture, or actually I should say depth, visual texture, and it helps cut down the glare. This piece has three pieces plated, one on top of another. Let's see if I can get you a sample of that. Here we go. And those are all stuck together, and that's what that looks like in the sun. Just makes a really deep, beautiful color. And all of these turquoise robe pieces are plated. This turquoise is super vibrant. You're going to be, I feel certain, pleasantly surprised at how gorgeous these windows. They're juicy, and you'll see the colors better now. Here's a sweet little piece that we love. This little tassel piece. It's just, they picked just all the right texture there for that tassel. And then here's the headdress. That's got similar plating. So, and now here's a really super fat piece of single glass. Look at that. It's crazy. Looks like a piece of macaroni and cheese casserole. Okay, this is the piece. This panel will be joined to this one, and this one's been already reglazed. It's got all the new leads on it, and it's been soldered. And don't panic, it looks very silver. This is going to receive a treatment of a putty, which we call cement, that will be rubbed up underneath the leads. And that weatherproofs it and stiffens the panel up a little bit. And then the panel will be patinaed, which means it will be rubbed with a brush, and it will make a really very soft, beautiful charcoal gray color. And here's an example of some of the leads, more leads. Here's a piece of lead this is a 1/4 inch, and it's got a flat profile, and the glass slips into those channels. And the lead we use is a restoration grade lead. It's not 100% lead, it's an alloy, which gives it more strength. I'm going to try to do this with one hand. It's stiff, but it's pliable. It's not super floppy or wobbly. It holds its own, but it's soft enough that it can be bent around a lot of these really curvy pieces. The lead in this panel is largely a 3/16 width profile with a little bit of a 1/4 inch. This panel that has the plated pieces is going to use this super wide lead, and when we glaze it, 2 pieces of glass will get snugged into this lead together. I think you can see that. And then it gets the cement in there. So that is what that looks like. Anyone have any questions? Ha ha ha. Sorry. Ben's shaking his head. I went ding-a-ling. There's Ben glazing. Hi, Ben. Pieces that are broken, we are trying to preserve everything because this glass is unusual and it's really hard to match. And so what we use to repair cracked pieces is a restoration grade 2-part epoxy called Hixtal. And it gets mixed, and it's called edge gluing. It goes right into the seam and glues that piece very nicely. And to take down the clear, bright look of a glued crack, we tint our glue. And so here's an example of some of our tinted glues. These are kind of dark. Some of the pieces are fairly dark, so we need a little bit stronger tint. And so that's what we're doing with most of the broken pieces we have. When we cannot glue a piece, when it's been too, well, basically obliterated, we have a stock of glass down here, and these are all labeled to match the different colors for broken pieces. So that is what that looks like. Now I'm going to walk back into another room here, and these pieces, just to take you around to the final bit of this tour, these pieces, these 2 panels have been already leaded, and they're awaiting the cementing process. And here is a piece that has been cemented. This is from the west wall.